to repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source.
All right, I'm going to go over this relay here. So this relay is a magnetically controlled relay. It's controlled by a magnet and it's controlled by two electromagnets, and it's also controlled by the two cores of those electromagnets. The iron cores of these electromagnets will present a pull force on this north-south magnet, both sides, because it's iron. So right now you see it in this position. Oh, sorry. You see the relay in the down position right now. Right there. Making contact with the bottom battery to send power to the bottom coil. This is the this is not the default state. Let me open up that image. All right, this is the default state. You notice both the coils are off. They're not being energized. And that is because the power is disconnected. So when this power gets connected here, you're going to be sending power from the battery to the coil. To the contacts, and the coil will energize, and it will look like here. No, wait, right here. Wait, sorry, there. It will look like that. So the bottom coil will get turned red. The bottom battery is red, meaning it's sending power to the bottom coil. And what happens is when you send power to this bottom coil and you send the positive out here, let me change the color of this. Hold on. Let's try green. When you send the power positive, another color. Okay, so you're sending your positive through here to the top contact of this relay. The top contact. And there's the bottom contact. So you're going to send power through there, right? Energize the coil. And when the coil has energy, it is going to push the magnet away. So, give me a second. So now the coil is energized, and it will present a north field right here on the core. It will present. I'm sorry, a south field. The blue on the magnet is south, red on the magnet is north. So when you energize this coil and you send your positive out this rail, the top rail, it comes out the top rail here. It flows from top to bottom on the coil, presenting you a north at the bottom, the direction of the flow. And the south will be presented at the top here. Because the blue part of the magnet is south, the south on the core will push the blue part of the magnet up. Okay? So as soon as you go from the default state, which is here, off, everything's off, and then you energize the bottom coil, as soon as that happens, the magnet's going to push up like so, because you created a south field here to push this south field up. And that's going to push the other side of the magnet, the north field, closer to the iron here. And because of that, the iron will pick up the magnet and bring it towards it, allowing it to make contact to the bars on the top. And that image is right there. See? So after the bottom magnet energized, create a south at the top here, and then push the south magnet up. It pushed it close enough to have the magnet, to have the iron on this electromagnet attract the magnet and pull it up to give it contact. And as soon as it gets contact, you'll notice that this coil here gets energized. And as soon as that coil gets energized, just like the bottom one, it's going to do the same thing. You're going to send the positive from the top battery, a second source, a double source. Remember, this is a double source, double throw relay, not just a double throw relay, double source, double throw. So the positive of the other battery is going to enter the bottom rail here. Okay, it's going to go up the top of the electromagnet and head down, giving you your north field where the arrow is. So you have a north field being presented here on the iron core to then push away the north field on this magnet, because the red is north. So alike fields repel. And then it pushes the magnet back down to remove contact from the battery and remove charge from the electromagnet. And there it goes, right there. It pushes it down to the center. And at this point, neither one of the coils is energized. It's in free flowing, and it's being controlled by the iron on the two electromagnets to move. It's not being controlled by power. It's being controlled by iron and magnetism. So in this state, the magnet is moving back down to the bottom electromagnet through the force of magnets pulling to iron. And and then it pulls down, disregard that, and it pulls down to right about there, pulls down again. As soon as it pulls down again, it makes contact to the bottom battery, repeats the cycle, energizes the coil again, provides you a south field here on the iron core to then repel the south field on the magnet right here and make it go back up towards these contacts here and towards this iron core. So basically what you have here is a relay that is controlled by the energizing of the electromagnet. So the relay is first controlled by the iron and its attraction to the magnet. And that control puts the relay in default state. And you assumedly in default state, you have your power turned off. With no power to the circuit, it allows this magnet to pull either to this core or to this core. The default state will be either up or down, depending on the pull direction it goes to. Because you have to keep in mind that the north field is stronger than the south field. So it's probably going to pull up or down. I don't know. Depends how close you have the iron core to the magnet. But you're going to situate these cores in a way where it attracts this magnet the way you want it, so that it does move back and forth. So you might have one core, iron core, closer than the other to the magnet to achieve that. So I hope that makes some sense. If you were to eliminate one of these electromagnets altogether, you could still make this thing work with one contact mode. Excuse me. So you could also make this thing operate like this if you want. But this, this relay also works. You know, as soon as you energize this coil by connecting here, it'll push the magnet up and disconnect the contacts. And as soon as you do that, you effectively de-energize this coil, turning it back into nothing but a piece of steel. And what happens then? Well, if this magnet moved up a little bit after you energized it and then you remove the power, well, this magnet will pull back down to this core. And then it'll repeat. So you can also make a relay like this, just simply like this, you know, triggering one source, double pole. That's what you see here. And this would be two sources, double pole. All right, I'm going to cut this short. I hope this made some kind of sense. And I will continue to discuss this if anybody's interested in talking about it. Anyway, the reason that this relay was designed was to run this circuit that you see down here. So I wanted to point out something here in this circuit real quick before I close off. These two switches, you see them? How they're open and they're not connecting to that battery. And you see these two switches, how they're closed right now. And notice there's two coils also. Those two coils represent a series connection to these two coils. These are just your triggering coils. So you would put this coil in series. It's open right now. The switch is open for this coil, so it would be in series with this coil since these two switches are open. And when you put these coils in series and then you close the switch here for that coil and energize it, then these two switches will close. You know, these two switches here are actually right here. Those contacts are right there, okay? They're the same contacts. You just have these two coils in series. In series. So, in that way, when you trigger power to this coil, you also send power to this coil. And by the way, these two batteries are also the same batteries. They're the same batteries. There's not four batteries here, just two. So these are the same two batteries. So when you trigger the top coil with power, you're going to send power to the bottom coil at the same time. And that will drive the wheel, or it will drive the circuit. Let me see something here. The wheel is, let me show you the wheel. The wheel is 45. The coils on the wheel are 45 apart. Let me present that screen here. Hold on. Where is it? Google. There it is. Okay, here you can see the wheel, you know, and it's how the coils are 45 degrees apart. So that's why I made this relay. The relay coils are not 45 degrees apart, they're 180 degrees. But you could see that by putting the relay coil in series with the drive coil, you could still trigger the drive coil with the relay coil and have the relay coils not in the not in the 90 degree position. Because as you see in here, the two coils are 45 degrees apart. I'm sorry, 90 degrees apart. Now, why does it do that? Yeah, so you see that there's a coil on your left in green and a coil at the bottom. And that's 90 degrees around the wheel. And that's necessary because these two coils are not being triggered at the same time. They're separately triggered. And you can see that how they're moving. I was just explaining why I had to put 2 switches on this thing and not 1. And it's because it was creating a short with 1 switch. I'll show that again with the short. So if you only had 1 switch here, and let's say we're switching the left source battery to the left coil right now, or let's do the right coil, okay? The right battery's powering the right coil. And you only had 1 switch, and you're only switching the negative, and you left the positive open. Oh, I'm sorry, and you left the negative. There's no switch here, and you left the positive with a switch, like that. So there's just 1 switch operating this. If you did that, the problem with that is, when you do close this switch, how do I explain this? So if you only had 1 switch on each of these relays, on each of these source power batteries, it would create a short. And this is how it does it. So let's say the right side is closing the switch. Now, okay, left side is like so. Right side closes the switch. Where's the short here? Okay, the short here is from this positive to that negative. And okay, there's no short this direction because this negative is isolated by this diode from hitting that positive, right? So there was no short in that direction. But then when you open up here and close here, this is assuming you're only using 1 switch instead of 2. And when you close here, you short out this positive, the negative here, and this is no switch here, it's a dead short, like supposing we're operating this with 1 switch on each source. So this negative is already connected to the positive of the other battery, and you do not want to do that. You do not want to cross terminals on the 2 batteries, so they'll short each other out. So in either direction, not in one direction there's a short, and the other direction there is not a short. It depends where you put the switch, the single switch on each source. But if you put a double switch on both sources, like here, 2 switches, you avoid any shorts. And that is the main reason why I had to do a double source throw instead of a single source, a double pole throw instead of a single pole throw. And I have to throw both the poles on both sources to achieve this and not have any short. I'm going to be going live every Sunday to do any Q&As or questions and answers about this. It's completely worked out in my head. So if you guys are still working it out, feel free to ask me any questions about it, and I will specifically answer what's going on at that point. You know, this was a very confusing circuit to put together, but once it was put together, it actually is very simple to understand. You know, it's just confusing to understand it at first, because you know we are all triggering coils with one of the poles of the source power. You know, we are either switching the positive or the negative. We're not switching the positive and the negative to operate our pulse motors or to operate our devices. Only time you see in the industry or anywhere out there that you see someone switching the positive and the negative at the same time from a source to a load is to reverse the direction of a motor or something like that, but not to do what you see here. This is pretty much a novel method of switching. As far as I can tell, I haven't seen this anywhere. If anybody has seen this relay or knows of a relay that does this already, I would love to buy it and set it up on this circuit. But as of now, I'm going to have to build it and when I get a lab together. Yeah, the switches are taking the place of a transistor. So if you wanted to use transistors to switch like this, you would have to use 4 of them, 2 transistors on each. Yeah, it would oscillate infinitely as long as you have power in the battery, and as long as the flyback is recycled enough so that the battery doesn't drain. But from my experience, the flyback is a little bit weaker than the first initial pulse, the forward pulse. You know, it's definitely going to be way more efficient and run a lot longer than any other device that just throws out the back EMF or whatever you want to call it, the flyback. A double pulse solenoid relay. Yeah. It's a solenoid relay that switches 2 poles, and it also switches 2 sources. So I haven't been able to find a relay that you can connect 2 source powers and keep them isolated on that relay and switch both poles on both sources. Let me show you a magnet running a relay on my channel. I made this thing some years back. It only uses one electromagnet, not 2 like you see here. Now you can see that right there. That's you see the magnet? Okay, the magnets are glued to a piece of metal that's glued to the electromagnet that has an iron core. So the iron core is going to pull that magnet attached to the piece of metal that's acting like a spring lever. It's going to pull it towards the iron core when the power's off. And by doing that, it's going to pull the contact away just far enough to disconnect power. And then as soon as the magnet on the wheel, this is a Bedini SG running here, as soon as the magnet on the rotor passes the core, it re-energizes the electromagnet and pushes the magnet away again to make contact. Maybe I had that backwards. It's been such a long time since I did this thing. Try to look a little closer here, but it's right. When the electromagnet gets powered on, it actually disconnects power by pushing the magnet away from the core of the electromagnet, and by doing that, it disconnects the contact to the electromagnet. And then the spring that's connected to the lever spring that's connected to the electromagnet, it's holding the magnet in place over the core, so that when there's no power applied to the electromagnet, the core will then pull the magnet back towards it and reconnect power to the electromagnet. And then the electromagnet generates a field that opposes the magnet on the metal lever and pushes it away again and disconnects power again. It just repeats over and over again. Okay. So this is a single pole throw magnetic relay that's operating on the same function as the one we just looked at with the double pole. Yeah. Well, this was just a quick little fun day for me to build this thing. It wasn't really anything serious, but the idea stuck with me and came in useful for the Bedini Flyback Loop with the 2 batteries and the 2 drive coils system that you were looking at earlier. Well, it's not that it's better. It's just, it's what I need to be able to run the Bedini Flyback Loop. I need to be able to switch 2 poles, not 1. Otherwise, it creates short. What is that? So this commutator does the same thing. It throws 2 source batteries into 2 different coils. It's the same thing, same operation, but you need to attach it to a shaft or spin it or something like that. And it's dependent on your rotor rotational for triggering, and that limits the. It's just harder to adjust the duty cycle and commutators and all that. So if you can control your duty cycle with an EMF field coming off an electromagnet, you got more control. You got more. You just run a pulse width modulator or something to the right. Well, I'm not using a pulse width modulator to control the relay, the double throw relay. I'm not using a pulse width modulator. I'm using the actual connection to power to control the switching. So it's completely controlled by when the power comes on. As soon as the power comes on, it turns off each time. So there's no real control over your RPMs or your frequency, but you can adjust the gap on the electromagnets. You can adjust the gap between the core of the two electromagnets and the magnet in the center. You could spread them further apart. It would create a longer switch time. The closer you brought them together, you would speed up your switch time. Right, it's powered by the line, right? It's not powered by a pulse width modulator. It's not frequency. It's only controlled by the time at which it takes the battery to create an EMF field in the coil and on the core. As soon as the core receives a magnetic field from the battery source power, that magnetic field will then turn off the power. So as soon as you turn on the power and create the magnetic field, it turns off the power. But when the power is turned off, the relay keeps moving in the direction it needs to switch the next event, thanks to the fact that you have two electromagnets with iron cores, and that magnet in the center is attracted to that iron. So you don't need power for that attraction. And that's why it continues to operate when the power's off. You see? So when the power's off, the natural attraction of the magnet to the iron pulls it back into position for power on. It's pretty confusing to hear that concept, but it's there. It's there. You just basically turn on the electromagnet, it pushes the magnet away, and you control your off switch. You're switching it off, turning your switch off like that. You turn your switch off by using the field of the electromagnet to push the magnet away. And if you have your contacts connected to the magnet, and you push the magnet away from your contacts by turning the field on to your core, which will then push that magnet away, you can see how that works. And if you don't push the magnet too far away, and you're able to hold it in place so it doesn't fly away, and then it's still close enough to the single core, and it pulls back to it. Kind of like the video I showed earlier with the VCR motor head. And here you're just, using two iron cores to create a attraction to that magnet in the center from two sides to control its direction in two directions, up and down. Yeah, it is part a solenoid relay, and yeah, it's a relay. It's a solenoid relay, but it's a double solenoid relay. Or you could do this with one solenoid relay, and if you're able to, yeah, you could do this with one solenoid relay. But the reason I'm using two electromagnets is because I already have them. They're already part of the circuit, and if you look at the circuit in the bottom right with the two batteries, those are the same two batteries as the batteries on the left, and the same two coils also. No, not the same two coils, sorry, but you're going to put one of the coils on the relay in series with one of the coils above those batteries. So when that coil that you put in series with the coil on the battery is energized, they're both energized. So basically, when you energize the relay coil, it energizes the coil that it's in series with. So when this relay is in the down position and the bottom coil is energized, that bottom coil gets connected to the coil on the right, on the bottom right, in series, because you can see the bottom right coil is energized. So on the bottom right diagram with the two batteries and the two coils, you have to pay attention to the two switches above the battery and notice how they're both open or both closed. And those two pole switches are the same switches that you see on the relay. They're the same switches. So as that relay moves and switches the two poles from each of the batteries, it also switches the coils down below on the right, if they're in series with the corresponding relay coil. So one of the relay coils, the bottom relay coil, when it's energized, it's supposed to be in series with the bottom coil on top of on the right side, the bottom right battery, the coil on top of it. And then the coil on top of the relay, the top coil of the relay, is connected to the left coil of the diagram on the bottom right. And that will control You put the two relay coils, one in series with the other coil on the circuit in the bottom right, and the other relay coil in series with the circuit on the bottom right. Also, you have two coils down there. So each coil goes in series with each coil. So you have two coils and two coils. Two pairs of coils, each pair is in series. And one of the coils that are in the pair is the trigger coil. It's the coil that's connected to the relay. Would the switching in this manner alter the way the Bedini circuit works? No, not at all. Because Bedini is capturing the flyback in the inductor using the diode, right? And this still does that. Bedini is only switching the one of the poles. I can't remember which one. Maybe he's switching the positive or something. Let's say he's switching the positive. That's fine for his circuit because he's capturing the flyback by switching the positive just fine. He doesn't have, the reason is Bedini doesn't have two coils. What he has is one coil flying back into the charge battery, and that one coil is also charged by the run battery. What I'm doing here is I have two batteries and two coils. So, one of the two batteries is charging one of the two coils. Not both of them, just one of them. So it would be the coil on top of the battery is the one getting charged by that battery. And it's just charging one coil, disconnecting the charge, allowing it to fly back into the other battery. And then the cycle goes on to the other battery, switches the power from the other battery to the other coil, disconnects it, and allows it to fly back into the other battery. So the flyback is just bouncing back and forth between the two coils and the two batteries. Gosh, this is confusing to understand and confusing to explain. But once you see what's going on, it's pretty obvious. It's like so obvious. It's like, oh, it's just two switches. For me, it wasn't so obvious in the beginning. I had no idea where I was heading with this. I had an idea, it flashed in my head, and I tried to figure out what I was thinking. It took me quite a while to get this thing consolidated. Also, what if you wanted a battery bank instead of just one? Right. I was muted when I said it, but you can put these batteries in parallel. You can put as many as you want in parallel between the two batteries. The battery on the right, you can put 10 batteries in parallel. The battery on the right, you can put 2 batteries in parallel. It makes no difference as long as they're the same voltage. The benefit to having more than one battery on each side in parallel with each other is that, let's say one of the batteries is loading a coil, and right after it does that, it's done loading that coil, and then right after that, at high frequency, the other coil is dumping the flyback into that same battery that just loaded the other coil. Supposing that same battery that just loaded the other coil is not prepared to receive that flyback. Well, that's why you have another battery in parallel. You see what I'm getting at? That's the benefit of having batteries in parallel, having more than one battery in parallel. You place more of a guarantee of receiving the flyback, even if the battery is not being loaded at the time that the flyback comes in. But because this is a high frequency switching circuit, I intend to run this up at a high frequency to test it out. Because the flyback is coming to the battery that just loaded so quickly, the battery that just gave the load to the coil may not be prepared to receive the flyback. But if you have more than one in parallel, then only one of those batteries is going to provide a load to that coil. Most likely, it's going to be the battery that is holding more charge, assuming they're not balanced yet. But either way, if you have more than one battery, let's say you have 2 or 3 or 4 providing the load to the coil, I also intend on making these drive coils high impedance, so I don't plan on making them draw too much power. So I'm not going to be putting a heavy load on the batteries. So for that reason, I expect the flyback to be doing just fine getting into these batteries. Yeah, you could do battery bank all day long. I just drew one battery here to make it more simple to draw and explain. But yeah, you could put as many batteries as you want in parallel with each of those batteries. And I advise that because it would perform better. You'd be putting less stress on that one battery to run the circuit, and you'd have multiple batteries waiting to receive the flyback. High stable analog magnetic oscillator. Well, yeah, I'm rusty. I don't know all the relays that are out there, I just know a few. I wouldn't even know what to call this relay or what to look for if I wanted to buy one like this. But if you have a source for this, please send me a link. I do not want to spend the time building it. replication of things like this is very involving and time consuming. Not that it's not worth doing, it is, but well, the good thing about replicating this relay is you can customize it to your own needs. You know, like if you were to buy a relay already made like this, you wouldn't be able to adjust it to change its frequency, or you couldn't move the electromagnets and the magnet that's being controlled. You couldn't change the gapping on it, which is what you would need to do if you wanted to manage the frequency of this relay. Multivibrators are one of the basics of digital. Yeah, send me a link. I want to see if this relay is already out there. I mean, multivibrators are basics of digital. What are you saying? These little chips have little solenoids in them? Microchips? Magneto op amp. Well, what's different about this relay is that it's not controlled by one power source. It's regulated by two power sources, and they correlate to the two solenoids. So as soon as you engage power from each source to each solenoid, that activates the position switch of the relay. All right, I gotta cut this short. Quad ton. Gotta do some work in the house today. Just wanted to make this quick video, and I'll be going live next Sunday again. Send me some links, man. I want to see these relays. I've been looking for relays. I couldn't find one to do this. Thank you, man. I appreciate the applause. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys later. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source. want to repeat this process over and over and over. But what you really want to do is you want to go as fast as you can without a capacitor, for the simple fact is you want to put a lot of this radiant energy to the source.